SEO or advertising, influencer marketing or MetaSearch Engines, or again a new booking engine as opposed to an attribute-based selling system, a better reporting tool or email automation. You see, now sales is sales, revenue management is revenue management, housekeeping is housekeeping. But what if I ask, what is marketing? Because when it comes to define marketing, here the situation becomes way more difficult, especially in the hotel industry, because whilst on one side we share marketing disciplines with other business sectors, on the other side the hotel industry implies something that is actually quite unique and quite more complex. If you think about, for example, MetaSearch Engines or even hotel distribution. And so in the previous video I asked the question, if you are giving a certain budget, let's say 10,000, 50,000, 100,000, dollars, euros, pound, how do you spend it? How do you decide where to allocate this budget? And you see how the situation may become a little bit difficult. You can decide to do some advertising on Google as opposed to Facebook, or both of them. You might decide to create a very structured and solid SEO plan as opposed to run a very effective MetaSearch engine activities and campaigns. Or maybe you simply decide to do everything. But of course, the more you want to do, the more budget you're going to need. Or maybe again, on the other side, you just don't do anything simply because you can't decide. Eventually, you just look around in the attempt to see what other fellow hoteliers do and eventually just try to copy them. Because ultimately, this is our nature, human nature. We like doing things that other people do, especially when we don't know what to do otherwise. And so whilst in the previous video we talk about all the different opportunities but also the scams that we should be aware of, in today's video let's go through the different types of marketing, the different marketing disciplines. It's like a menu with a list of dishes and you have to decide which one you want. But of course you cannot take everything unless of course you have millions of dollars to spend in your marketing activity. And for each and every of these marketing disciplines, let's see together some of the most important pros and some of the most important cons in order to decide how to allocate your marketing budget. These are more coming up, so let's dig in. Number one is probably the most known discipline, the one that everyone knows, SEO, search engine optimization. Even though typically we just refer to SEO as just one discipline, but deep down we have so many other sub-disciplines that can be kind of summarized with technical SEO and then content SEO. Besides, SEO is the slowest yet the most solid marketing activities that you can invest your money on. And so the main pro is that SEO itself as a marketing discipline, it's free. Ranking number one on Google is not necessarily something that you have to pay for. And the second thing is that following the best SEO practices and techniques, it means that you are an authority in your respective target or market. In other words, you are the authority, the go-to hotel for those search terms that you want to rank for. The cons, of course, we said before, it's very slow. And thus, if you are in the need of immediate result, well, probably SEO is not probably the best option you have. The second drawback is that SEO can be very competitive for the very reason that we said before. It's free and it's the most solid marketing activities that you could adopt. And last but not least, there are no guaranteed results. No one can say whether it will take 6 months, 1 month, 1 year to position and to rank for certain keyword on Google organically. And no one knows what Google tomorrow morning, in 1 month, in 1 year will change again in the algorithm that will define how websites rank in their SERP. Marketing discipline number two, we just talked about it before, but we keep it separate. It's content SEO. In other words, content marketing. And this is very logic now. Think about it. How can you rank on Google for certain search terms if you don't talk about those search terms? Now, probably you see and understand how big marketing is, even though you narrow down to the specific of the discipline, like in this case, SEO. However, typically SEO works in great conjunction with other marketing activities, for example, advertising. And we talked about it in a previous video that essentially advertising is an amplifier of what already works organically. And thus, if your content is pretty much engaging for your target customers, well, that's gonna be of a great support for all of your advertising activities. Content marketing or content SEO is also free, but there are a lot of other pros that you could benefit from using and adopting content SEO, one of which is that content SEO is evergreen. If, for example, you write an article or a post talking about the 10 most interesting and engaging things for families to do in your specific destination, well, that is going to be lasting forever. And just like we said before, SEO as a whole is going to serve all other marketing activities as well. Number 3, it's Google Ads, to which we can refer to as SEM, so search engine marketing. And so if you can't wait to rank number 1 on Google for certain keywords, well, then you have to pay. But you see, either time with SEO or money with SEM, you anyway have to give up on something. So which one of these two resources would you like to use in order to be found from your potential customers? The first pro, of course, is that it's immediate. You don't have to wait to get results. The second thing is that it's measurable to the dollar. Of course, you need to have a proper tracking in place. And last but not least, the reach, meaning the number of people that you could potentially reach out to with your campaigns, is huge, is so vast. The cons, of course, is that it can be very expensive, not necessarily so much expensive, and that may vary depend on where you are, so your destination, your location, on the keywords and the competition, on many different factors. And even though it can be very expensive, also the competition can be very high. The more appealing and the more volumes a certain keywords get, the more competition you're going to be having. And of course, when we talk about competition, especially when we talk about SEM, we're not just talking about your hotel competitors, but also third-party channels, meaning the OTAs. Number 4, Facebook ads, which is the counterpart of Google Ads. Facebook ads that we can include in the bigger container called SMM, or social media marketing. Now, originally, one of the main differences between Google ads and Facebook ads, or between SEM and SMM, was that Google was a pull type of advertising, whilst Facebook was originally a push type of advertising. This difference is still in place, but it's way more slim. What is still a big difference, in my opinion, is the context, because especially on social media marketing, well, social media are the perfect place to do advertising because of the mindset that people are when they are on social media. And so one of the biggest pros of social media is that you can cover all the stages of the funnel, so starting from the dreaming phase to the planning phase to the booking phase. Second of all, the targeting options that you have available, especially on Facebook, are unbeatable, are incredibly good. And last but not least, also retargeting on social media typically works better. The cons, especially in times like these, Facebook is quite unstable, especially after iOS 14. It's no secret, Facebook is full of bugs, technical glitches, problems. It's difficult to get quality support from Facebook. And to be honest with you, also the documentation of that should support advertising in order to provide and better spend our money and giving more money eventually to Facebook actually is quite outdated. Data-wise, it's way more difficult to track and to have reliable data to work on. First of all, because of what we just said before, iOS 14. Because of this, many people decided to opt out from being tracked, and therefore there is not much data and not necessarily all reliable data that we can work with. And second of all, we always fall into the attribution problem when it comes to social media advertising. Number 5, still falling under the social media marketing, and still Facebook, but this time organic posting or organic Facebook marketing. I should say social media, not necessarily Facebook, but you get the point. When I talk about Facebook, by the way, I also talk about Instagram. Engagement, entertainment, and support. That's what social media are made for. And once you can decide whether you want to invest in social media advertising, what cannot be argued is your social media presence. And so the first pro is that, of course, it's free. Most importantly, social media are the perfect places to build relationship and, as said, to engage and entertain people. And last but not least, social media should be used to provide inspiration. Inspiration about your locality, your destination, inspiration about what people can do when eventually traveling and staying at your place. The main drawback, though, is essentially the same. It's quite difficult to measure. Of course, you can track the engagement rate of your post, you can see how many likes, how many post share you get, but you cannot relate whether this engagement, whether this share, whether these comments turn then into reservations later on. Number 6, MetaSearch Engines. In my opinion, MetaSearch Engines should not even be mentioned in this video. But I wanted to talk about because you think MetaSearch Engine is a marketing activities or discipline. Let me be crystal clear. MetaSearch Engine is just a distribution channel. And the very reason is that you can get exposure And yes, exposure may be part of marketing, but that's exactly what hotel distribution is about. You get exposure. The reason why I don't count MetaSearch Engine as a marketing channel is because a MetaSearch Engine do not and cannot provide any value. To be successful on MetaSearch Engine, you can only leverage the only one weapon which is actually overused by all hotels all over the world, which is the price weapon. However, it has some pros, and the best pro is that it's the best tool that you can work with in order to be competing with the OTAs. And the second good point is that it's very easy to track. I mean, there is not much that you need to do, just a very simple tracking in place, and you know to the dollar how much a MetaSearch Engine contributes to your direct booking. In the cons, I put for sure the fact that, in my opinion, it's totally overrated. Now, I'm not necessarily against the MetaSearch Engines, or at least not all the times. However, the fact is that you may attribute reservations or credit MetaSearch Engines for reservations that you get, was ultimately either those reservations will flow in anyway, or on the other side there are certainly other marketing sources and mediums that contributed to bring that reservation in. And because of this, the problem is that it's difficult to track the real impact. But to me, always the most important thing is that MetaSearch Engines is just a pricing weapon, period. And therefore, there is no value that you can add, just better prices. Number 7, data-driven. Now, data-driven marketing isn't, in theory, a marketing discipline, for the very reason that no one can do marketing without data, and especially without reliable data. But I wanted to talk about at least very briefly, because I want to highlight once more the importance of using data, but even more importantly, to interpret the data. Data is your starting and ending point, is your best friend when it comes to decide, okay, how should I allocate my budget? And last but not least, how did my marketing activities, or what kind of return did I get from my marketing activities? And so any single activity that you run should be tracked, even though we have seen some of this marketing discipline cannot be easily tracked. As a matter of fact, when I talk about data, I never talk about data being extremely precise. Even 80 up to 90% accuracy of your data is more than enough, yet the data is consistent, and based on consistency, we can take proper decisions. And so the main pro is that, of course, data supports every single marketing activities that you want to run. And the second pro is that you can work with very useful data at no or very little cost. Of course, there are also tools that may be costing a lot, but then also they provide you with many different insights. In the console, one of the biggest problems, in my opinion, the analysis paralysis situation. Get attached to data in order to have hints, in order to give us answer or to give us an indication as to what we should be doing. And therefore, instinctively, we want to have more and more data, more and more data, more and more data. With the ultimate result that probably sometimes the data is too much and we cannot handle and digest. And the result is either analysis paralysis, meaning that we get stuck and we don't know how to move forward, or the just do it situation where you are simply so much overwhelmed that you give up and you just take decision based on your feelings. The second problem is that interpreting data is one of the most difficult things to work with, and it takes experience and it takes time. Number 8, influencer marketing. Now, I have to admit, I have a sort of love and hate relationship with this marketing activity. And to be fair, I don't want to necessarily negatively judge it, also because, like I said, I also have a tiny, small, lovely part towards influencer marketing. And the reason is that influencer marketing is basically about faking. And here's the best part. If you have been following me a little bit, you know that I always or very often talk about value as opposed to pricing, for example, and how I usually refer to value as a perception. And here's the point. There is no intrinsic value in what we offer, but the influencer marketing may move the needle towards your hotel simply because the perceived perception of your hotel may totally be different because someone talks about your hotel in a certain way. For this very reason, influencer marketing can be a huge scam. Speaking of which, I link a post of LinkedIn that I wrote some time ago on how a specific hotel manager was actually able to reply to an influencer request, let's put it this way. A very smart way of replying and to identify whether the influencer may be a real influencer or a fake one. The pro is that you can really have a huge impact, really, really huge. And the second benefit is that you can have it immediately, in no time. And more importantly, if done well, it helps create trust and credibility in the eyes of potential customers. The cons, of course, is that it's so easy to be ripped off by potential fakers. And the second thing is that oftentimes influencer marketing is considered as a sort of quick win solution or quick win tactic. And quick wins, in my opinion, never win. Number 9, email marketing. Now, if you put together 100 marketers working in 100 different business sectors and working all over the globe, and you ask them, okay, what is the one marketing weapon that you will bring along on a desert island? More likely, 80 up to 90% of them will reply email. It's so powerful yet so misused because most times we refer to email marketing as just a newsletter tool, as just a way of spreading our offers, our packages, and nothing more. But email marketing is way, 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 way more. It's email automation, for example. It's the confirmation email that you send to your customers as soon as the very moment that they confirm a room with you. That can be turned into a marketing weapon. It's a pre-stay email that you can use to upsell or upgrade. It's a post-stay email where in theory, if used well, you can turn just a recent past customer into a new potential customer by putting them back into your marketing flow. The pro is that it's free other than the tool that you're going to be using for sending out emails, even though there are also free solutions. But the most important pro is that by far email marketing is the highest converting channel. In the concept with the fact, of course, that emails can end up into spam and therefore being totally useless. But even if your email don't end up into any spam folder, well, most emails just create noise, and when there is too much noise, it's very difficult to stand out. Number 10, IMM, or instant messaging marketing. In simple words, chatbots. Now, yes, I am a big fan of chatbots because I've seen them working across all the industry very, very, very well, and especially in post-pandemic times, they have become one of the highest converting channels. And so with a chatbot, essentially, imagine you can have a concierge service 24/7 that can handle as many customers and potential customers at the same time in real time that may be costing you even as little as $15 per month. I mean, do the math, isn't it convenient? The best part of IMM is that it's very dynamic. It can really help you with support to your customers, with Q&A, with reservations, with requests, and so on and so forth. The other cool thing about chatbots is that you can humanize them as much as possible. Even though one of the biggest mistakes, in my opinion, is that we try or we pretend to turn them into human beings when they are not. And customers know that they're not human beings. Customers know that they are dealing and they're chatting with a chatbot, which is totally fine. But whether you like it or not, chatbots work. The difficult thing, of course, is that we are dealing with a bot, with a robot, and therefore it may be difficult to set up because a chatbot in theory should be able to answer all of the questions that it gets. And therefore, this process may take some time. Teaching every single answer and all the possible behaviors that the chatbot should be having in each and every situation may take a little bit of time and not necessarily be easy. And second thing is that the chatbot is quite difficult to measure because it's quite difficult to get bookings via chatbot directly. However, they function as an assisted channel to other marketing sources that might be getting the reservation at the end. And finally, video marketing. Probably this is the area where you can have the highest success for the very simple reason that there is the least competition. Very few hotels all over the world approach video marketing as a marketing discipline. Now, we all know that YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world after Google, to whom it belongs, by the way. Yet many people still feel uncomfortable being in front of a camera, or they don't know necessarily how to deal with a camera, how to create a video. But videos can be of many different types, and some of them have proven being very successful. I'm thinking of, for example, lip dubs, hotel lip dubs. Just like content SEO, they are there and they are evergreen and they work forever and people can enjoy them forever. The other biggest pro is that if images communicates emotion way better than any descriptive word, well, videos communicates emotions way better than any images. And so the emotional impact is way higher than any other way of communication that you can have in your arsenal. And last but not least, there is no need of, very complicated and advanced tool or equipment. So you can simply shoot a video with an iPhone camera or a mobile camera, and that's really it, and that's totally fine. And the cons, of course, as we said, it may be difficult to produce because, I mean, creating video is not just like writing a post, and therefore there are certain techniques and certain, things to be following. And so these are the different marketing activities. I hope now you have a little bit of a better idea in terms of where you could potentially invest your money, depending on how much budget you have, the time, meaning do you need immediate results or are you looking for mid-long run results? And so this is it for today's, and I'll see you again in the next video.